Hey, real quick before we get into this video, I'm doing a giveaway with EXP Share Collectibles for an English version of the EVX01 accessory and card set that were at the conventions that were happening these last couple weeks. So check it out if you haven't already. Link to the description for the Twitter post. All you gotta do is follow our accounts, like the post, and comment, and we will be pulling a winner on Friday, August 29th. So check it out if you haven't, and enjoy the video. Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we've got a top 16 breakdown for my Gundam GD01 half case event that I ran this past weekend. We had 120 players, 7 rounds of Swiss best of 1 into a top 8 cut best of 3. And real quick before we get started, if you guys are new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe. We make a lot of content for the Gundam card game and don't want you guys to miss it. Also, this was live streamed. If you guys want to check out the live stream, it's linked in the description. Make sure to check it out quickly if you don't want to get spoiled on who wins this event, but really appreciate you guys checking it out and joining the live stream in the first place. And then also, if you guys want to check out my co-commentators, you can find Risu and Garrett linked in the description as well to find their channels. So lastly, while you're in that description, I do want to say you can check out any of the deck lists for this event or many others on my website, Eggman Events. And lastly, I do want to say a big shout out to our judge Leon for helping this event too. Would not be able to do this without him either. So jumping on into it, again, we did have 120 players, 7 rounds of Swiss best of 1 into a top 8 cut. We did have a top 16 prize pool, and of that top 16, we had 6 people on the green and white Wing Zero, 5 people on the red and blue Cyber-Newtype, 3 people on blue-white Unicorn, 1 person on blue-white Freedom Blockers, right? And these kind of like mesh together a little bit. And then 1 copy of blue-green Zeon Aggro. So we didn't see anything from the red-white or green-red kind of card pool, which kind of makes sense. It's kind of like those are kind of the 2 weaker colors, I think, in this. I'm not saying that they can't win these events, but clearly there's not a lot of people on them, with only 7 people on red and white and 6 people on the green and red. So I do think that there are some cool combos for these decks, but it's difficult for them to do well, I think, in a 7-round structure as well. And I did look through all of the X2s, and there weren't any additional kind of extra color combinations that were able to get an X2 finish, even if they did bubble out of the top 16. But we do see that, you know, red and blue, as well as green and white, and blue and white taking up about 2/3 of the format, blue and green taking out about 20 to 25%, and then the rest of it there. So I think every color combination is represented in some way, but blue, red, green, white, and blue and white, I think, are the main 3 of the 6 that we have right now. So we are going to go over kind of the top placing list for each kind of archetype and color combination. We're going to look at all the top 8 lists. We're going to look at a couple kind of top 16 lists that were kind of more unique as well. But again, if you guys want any of these deck lists, you can find them linked in the description on Eggman Events. We're going to start off with our Unicorn Blockers deck, and we do have Josh's version of the deck that was able to win this event. And I've had a real hard time kind of distinguishing like the blue and white decks. Generally, most of the time, they're just kind of blue, white, good stuff. This is, you know, unicorn centered, and I would say one of the more unicorn centered decks that I've seen. It is technically like a blockers deck, but not by a wide margin, right? We are playing a couple copies of Ailstrike and Gundam Ilfrit, but that's really it, right? We're not playing any Freedom. We're not playing any like Perfect Strike. We're just playing 8 blockers into this deck, which I still think is enough, but it is interesting to see, you know, how the diversity has gone from like, oh, Freedom's really good with a little bit of Gundam, Unicorn, and now we have Unicorn Gundam being like the main focus of this deck, playing 4 copies of the Unicorn mode and then 4 copies of the Destroy mode, which is pretty strong for this deck as well. So I do think that is pretty interesting. We're also not playing any copies of Amuro. I would say he is, you know, generally one of the better blue pilots in this game, though, you know, it is like a little bit dependent on playing like your Star Deck Gundam. And I do think like if you're playing 4 of each of the unicorns, you do kind of run out of space eventually. So one other card that I think has been getting more and more popularity over the last couple weeks is the Sword Strike Gundam. During link attack, choose 1 enemy unit with 2 or less HP, return it to the owner's hand. It does have to be a link with an Earth Alliance trait, so that does mean has to be either Kira or the Hawk of Endymion, which this has been a new ad. This being able to balance something with HP or 3 or less means that there's so many kind of like tokens that I think people are playing that being able to bounce that back to hand means that you do get rid of them. There has been an uptick, I think, of people playing Corsica base, and so being able to say, you know what, I'm going to use Sword Strike Gundam. The Tall Geese has 2 HP, so I can bounce that back to hand, which means it gets removed from the game, and still pressure something else with the 5 or 6 AP with either Kira or the Hawk of Endymion. So I've been really enjoying this card card popping up a little bit more, I think it's been very valuable. And kind of instead of like being like a blocker, it kind of proactively lets you do some trades. It's kind of like a backup copy of Ailstrike Gundam, if you really want to think of it that way, that you get to do a turn earlier and you can use with either Haku and Demian or the Kira Yamato. So all of these are really good and helps you get to these late games where you do get to do the unicorn mode and the destroy mode. One thing I do also want to mention before we leave this part of the video is that there was a little bit confusion on the stream on how this works, and I've seen this before. I do want to clarify it. You can play this card as long as the first part happens. So it says, when playing this card from your hand, you may destroy one of your link units with unicorn mode in its card name that is level 5. If you do, play this card as if it's a level 0 cost unit. So that means that you are able to, even if you're only level 5 itself, let's say you played out a unicorn mode with a Bonager or attacked with it, you're tapped out, you're only at level 5, you're still able to pop your unicorn mode and play this destroy mode, right? It doesn't matter that you're not at level 7. If you read the entire effect, you do just have to have that first condition. So I know it's like a little bit of like the chicken or the egg, which comes first, right? You can't play the card if they're level 7, but it becomes level 0, right? So trust me, it's how it's worked. I wish the wording was a little bit different for it, but you are able to play this early as long as you have the first condition of a unicorn link unit that is level 5. So there it is. Other than that, I think these are some pretty standard cards, and it's been cool to see blue-white be kind of more tempo aggression and less of like the kind of blockers and kind of hold up builds. So this is Josh's build. We also do have Daniel's build as well as Leonardo's build as well, kind of looking a little bit similar here. I would say that Daniel's build is pretty similar to what Josh was running for this one too. Again, like no copies of Amuro, being able to have some additional blockers as well. The biggest difference is that it's the difference between playing either Jim or the Zawart. I'm not a really big Zawart believer. I think the card is like nice as a blocker, but it's only really good on the early game. Sometimes also that 2 cost is a little expensive, and like not being able to do anything and just kind of sit on the board. I really just don't like the card personally. So I think that it's cool to see some additional kind of resources used to get rid of that by using like the gym for like a cheaper unit that can sometimes get the same effect of just being able to get some early trades into the game. So but I know that Daniel's been playing and trying to perfect their blue and white build here, so I think this has been a pretty solid build. And then Leonardo playing, approaching more of like the Freedom Gundam. We are going to talk about like more blue-white, like Freedom blocker decks, kind of the more traditional builds that we saw at the beginning of the format too. But also, instead of using the Gym, we're using the Demi Garrison, which in all intents and purposes is the same for this deck too. Only difference is that like technically, like if you pair a pilot with one of your white units, this is better because it's a white unit, right? So you get that Freedom Gundam. It's a minor thing, right? But just being able to again like get those early pressure trades with Demi Garrison I think is good. We are playing mostly our unicorns with 4 copies of the unicorn mode, 3 copies of the destroy mode, and then no copies of Amuro, just using Kira, Bonager Lynx, and Haku and Demian as our pilots. So I think this is definitely a new wave version to play blue-white. It seems like it's been doing pretty good. Congratulations to all of our unicorn players in this event. All right, next up we've got Cyber-Newtype, a deck that you guys should know that I'm a big fan of, and I'm still like learning or trying to learn the best way to play this deck. So this is Edwin's version of the deck, ended up getting 2nd place with it. I would say this is a mildly standard build of the deck itself. We are playing a good amount of our level 2 1-drops, playing 6 between the Jins and the Jims. We're playing the Anksha. We're playing the Gun Tank, right, for that additional ping damage. You've got the Kshatriyas, only playing 8 pilots in this build, which I think is the minimum you have to play, but I have been seeing people try to sneak in some extra pilots, which we'll look at in a little bit. We've got our Gun Cannon, our Rizal, and then our Kshatriyas and our Destroy mode too. So I think that a split of 4 copies of Kshatriya and 2 copies of Unicorn Gundam O2 Banshee Destroy mode is like the right difference. The ratios for these, I think 2 of these is fine for it. It does get around like Wing 0 because it is a level 6, and sometimes it's a hard interact with card. Even if you don't have like the during link effect, just having like a pair with the Merida, or sorry, a link with the Merida to get that extra damage once per turn can be really, really helpful. Kshatriya, I think on curve, either this one or the level 5 can just like turn the tides to your favor if you're able to get some like incremental ping damage across the board. This being able to wipe out a couple cards by doing 3 damage with the link as well as the effect gets you a lot of pressure in the mid game. So I think that's strong. We do have bases between the Corsica base as well as the Phasaelis. We do also have the Battle of Aces, which I think a lot of people are saying either like 2 Battle of Aces, 2 close combats, either of these can be really helpful. And then 4 copies of Show Resolve. I do think that this is like a little bit heavy on this side. I would probably play like 2 to 3 copies of it, it can get you a win in the spot where you're not, supposed to. But it is also important, I think, in this deck to be able to play bodies every turn, and this can kind of get in the way in that if you see more than one of them. So by and large, I think this deck is really good. We do have the copy here from Edwin. We also do have Marin's version of it, which is a little bit more atypical. This is a build that I have not tried at all, but it did catch my eye. The biggest part is we're playing the Atherin. So unfortunately, Atherin is not a new type unit that does our Cyber-Newtype, which just means that we can't like link it or pair it with the Kshatriya to get that additional effect. But being able to be like this 1/2 means that you do get some really good defense tools. The fact that you become a 3/5 with our gun cannon, or even like a 5/6 with our Gundam, is really nice. As long as like 5/6 on your turn, 4/6 on your opponent's turn. Aegis Gundam MA mode is also a really strong unit. It's kind of like our only way in blue and red to get like a good breach damage. Breach 3 does mean you can get rid of EX bases, and if you link the MA mode with the Atherin, you do get some early advantage as well. So we're playing through that one and one of the ones from the star deck. I'm not the hugest fan of this one, but this can get some really kind of weird trades in the mid game, and that can be helpful, especially since we do so much like incremental damage as well. So for example, if they have like an Ail Strike, there are some ways for us to like deal damage to it with like Kshatriya, then later use like Aegis Gundam to get that extra 3 damage to it. So other than that, we do have some, bases. We're playing them between the Corsica, Vasalis, and White Base, 2 close combats, a Battle of Aces, and 3 copies of Show of Resolve. So a lot of what we've been kind of used to in this deck, a little bit more like mid-range because of the Aegis Gundam and the Atherin, but it's a cool innovation, and I do want to try this one out when I can. So then lastly, to wrap up our top 8 builds, we do also have Jumps build, which able to get to a top 8. Pretty similar again, just running a little bit more of the removal, having 2 copies of Close Combat and 2 copies of Battle of Aces, and then only 2 copies of Show of Resolve. So, but generally we see like the standard package that these decks are running. I do think that if you see Gundam with Amro uncurved, your win rate just goes up quite a bit. This pilot is so good at disrupting the early game, being able to get rid of a blocker for the turn at least, and then being able to really interact with like EX bases or bases where this is going to be 6 damage, which is quite a lot, and beats up any base in the game right now. So I think that's really strong. It's pretty clear to me like why blue red's been really strong in this early game, and here are our builds in the top 8 as well. All right, moving on to Wing Zero, we had 2 copies in the top 8. We've got Jonathan's build here, which was able to get a top 4 finish, and this is pretty similar to how I've played it. I do think that there are some kind of tech adds. I think people are still running like the Ail Strike Gundam, right? This being able to kind of interact with tokens right now. I think more people are playing tokens on average, especially with Corsica base being, I think, really popular. Being able to use Ail Strike with any pilot in your deck and get rid of that unit is really, really nice. We do also have like cards like Zawart as well as the Gundam Ilfrit as just really good like early game. We are playing the Death Scythe, which is a little bit less typical, but being able to have like another card that you could link with and get like the value from Duo, I think is fine. To kind of counteract that, we are running only 3 copies of Wing Zero, which, as spoilers, it could be a little bit tough to find this card at times. So being able to like get the cycle you need is really important. We are playing like 4 Overflowing Affections, 3 copies of Path Victory or Defeat, also 2 Striker packs, which I think this is pretty mandatory in this deck right now to play 2 or 3. It's such a good way to kind of get to the late game more consistently. The fact that they're like worst case backup copies of Gundam Ilfrit, which is one of the best units in this deck because it's a cheap blocker that you don't KO by yourself by using your own Wing Zero, and the fact that its burst effect can win you games, which may or may not have happened in this tournament too. So I think this is pretty close to what I'd be running, and I think this is pretty solid for running more of this defensive package with a little bit of ramp with the Wing Gundam, and we have that there. And we also have Apia's version of the freedom blockers, which this one was really, really interesting. There's an unfortunate game that it did break a little bit in one of them, but being able to get a top 8 finish with this build I think is really impressive, running more of an academy build. So you'll see that there's absolutely 0 ramp in this deck. It is mostly just getting to 8 resources the hard way and then being able to like stabilize and get that extra advantage. So you are playing the 4 copies of Hero, 4 copies of Kira, and then 4 copies of this Letta Mercury. So a lot of pilots, 12 in this deck in particular. particular, you do have ways to interact with your opponent by using the Zawart, by using the Gundam Ilfrit, but also the Gundam Farak. So it's a During Link, so it only works with Soletta in this deck, but choose one enemy unit gets AP -2 for the battle. So it's kind of like another way to be able to have like the L Strike as well as the Kira Yamato, which is really nice. We are also playing the Gundam Aerial Rebuild, which this is a level 6, which means that we do get around our own Wing Zero by playing this card. Being able to pair it with any pilot, though, gets you back any one of your commands. So it could be an Overflowing Affection, Unforeseen Incident, or a Striker pack, which we are playing one. But being able to play, link a pilot to draw a card that plays another unit, I think is very good. And then our top end is the Wing Gundam, the Freedom Gundam, as well as the Wing Gundam Zero. So a really cool build. I haven't tested it out myself, but I think there are some real cool possibilities with this one, and I do want to try it. So congratulations to our Wing Zero players as well. And then to wrap up this video, we've got 2 unique decks that were able to get into the top 16. We got Samuel with, I would say, like the more traditional build of like a blue and white blockers deck. We're not playing any copies of Unicorn Gundam here, and we are just kind of focusing on our blockers in general. This also is kind of like a little bit of an Academy build, though the only way we can see that is the 3 copies of Soletta as well as the 2 copies of Gundam Area Rebuild. But, being able to have Amuro, again, still one of the best pilots in this game in my opinion, the Kira Yamato as well as the Soletta, all of these are just great pilots that have fantastic abilities on no matter what unit they have, and also have just great units that you can link and pair with. So I do think that if you're trying to play like a more control-y deck, this is a moderately good way to start. Just playing, 2 copies of Star Deck 1 and 2 copies of Star Deck 4 gets you the majority of this list as is, with just a couple additional additions. So I do know that the Aerial Rebuild and the Freedom Gundam, I think these have gone down in price a little bit since they haven't been as popular, though that could be changing at any moment. I think this meta has been so fast and changes every week. But the fact that I think that, Strike Rouge, I think is people have been like, oh, Strike Rouge, this card's been really great. The fact that it's kind of like an Archangel on a body, but you only have to pay 1 for the ability means that it's really great at being able to, get your blockers to attack, but then still get their defensive properties right. We are playing 6 bases, 4 copies of Archangel. We're also playing the Null Argama, which this one's pretty like, additionally like an Amuro on a base. It has to be 3 HP or less, which is a little bit shallow, right? There's not as many blockers that kind of fit into this. The fact that this card can't, rest a healthy Ilfrit is a little bit of a negative to me, but it is just like another base if you need it. And then we are also playing 1 copy of the Weiss base. We are playing the Overflowing Affection, Unforeseen Incident, 2 copies Show of Resolve, and 2 Striker packs, which again, you get to use again with the rebuild, and then the rest of the deck here. So I think this is, traditionally looking more like a standard blue-white deck at the beginning of the format, but can still do well. And congratulations to Samuel for their X2 finish with this one. And then to wrap it up, we do have Will with their version of the green and blue kind of Zeon Aggro, I've been calling. I know some people call it like 1 Year War, which I don't love that name just because it doesn't really say which way it's leaning, right? There's like, I've seen like Earth Federation builds that are kind of similar to this and Zeon leaning builds, so I've been calling it Zeon Aggro. But just the fact, like, this has been a build I know a lot of people in like Asia in particular have been really on. I think they've been seeing that this can be really strong in the deck. And my personal opinion, this is my opinion, you guys can choose another one, but I think that if you were playing a deck like this, I think red-blue is just better in like 9 situations over 10. This deck does have, I think, a higher ceiling for how good it can finish. The fact that you have so much high maneuver, the fact that Char with any of the Zakus is really good in this deck is superb, right? But you're seeing that we're not really, we're playing a really low to the ground deck. We are really momentum based. And if we lose momentum early, or if our opponent's able to stabilize it all, we don't really have a comeback mechanic. And it's really hard to be consistent with this deck when I think Char is such a good part for the deck. And not only can we not search it, but our searches can bottom deck it as well. So it's a little bit tough for me to commit to this deck when, again, there's not as much consistency for finding Char when it's so important for your success. But there are a lot of ways that this deck can be really aggressive and can win very early as well. So I just think that in a tournament like this one, being able to go 5-2 is actually really impressive for a deck like this. After like 4 rounds, I think that, you can get above average lucky, I think, for 4 rounds straight. I don't think that's too unusual, but once you start getting to round 5 or above, it's going to be a little bit trickier to be consistent, I feel, with a deck like this one. But we low to the ground, we got our Dops, our Zaku 1s, our Jims, our Gun Tank, our Zaku 2s, as well as our Char Zaku's 2s, and then the G Fighter, the Gundam, and the Amuro. So I think that we can get some good value from this. I do also like the Siege Ploy for this build. This was a card that I disliked when we were looking at just the star decks in general, but it being like not only an extra copy of Amuro in some situations is good on like a command, but also the fact that this burst effect is can just help you just win the game in some weird spots when your opponent's not really expecting it. So all in all, I think this deck is still fine. I do think that it's a little bit less good than maybe the other decks we're able to top here, just because it has some consistency issues in longer tournaments. But when this deck wants to win, it wins so aggressively. It's so fast. And a big congratulations to Will for their top 16 finish with this one. But that's going to be it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was a lot of fun. And again, if you haven't already, make sure to check out the live stream if you guys want to see any of these matches. And I'll likely have another tournament in the next couple weeks as we're leading up to the Bandai Card Fest in Dallas. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really do appreciate it. And I'll catch you all next time.